Midnight, September 26, 1983. Inside a secret bunker south of Moscow, a siren begins to scream. A wall panel flashes to life. Red letters, one word, launch. Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov is the officer on duty. His job is simple: watch the sky, report what he sees. Tonight, the system tells him 5 American missiles are already in the air, heading for Soviet soil. He has minutes to decide if the world is ending. This is that story. To understand that night, you have to understand the year. 1983 was, by nearly every measure, the most dangerous year of the entire Cold War. Ronald Reagan had been in the White House for 2 years, and he was not interested in quiet diplomacy. In March, he stood before Congress and called the Soviet Union an evil empire, a phrase that stunned Moscow. Weeks later, he unveiled the Strategic Defense Initiative, a missile shield nicknamed Star Wars, designed to make Soviet nuclear weapons obsolete overnight. To the Kremlin, this did not look defensive. It looked like preparation for a first strike, one the Soviet Union might not be able to answer. Soviet leadership, under the aging and paranoid Yuri Andropov, became convinced that NATO was quietly getting ready for war. The KGB launched a real intelligence operation, codenamed Ryan, with a single goal: watch for any sign that the West was about to attack. Fear, once it takes hold of a government, does not stay quiet. It spreads through every level of command. That fear turned deadly. A Korean Airlines passenger jet, Flight 007, drifted off course into restricted Soviet airspace. Soviet fighter pilots, believing it was a biplane, were ordered to fire. 269 people were killed, among them a sitting United States congressman. Reagan called it an act of barbarism. The world's press called it a massacre. The Kremlin, humiliated and defensive, braced for retaliation that never came, at least not in the form they expected. Instead, tension kept climbing. Both sides now genuinely believed the other might strike first. This was the atmosphere Stanislav Petrov walked into on the night of September 26th. Not calm, not routine. A world already standing on the edge. He understood the technology had training, because system he monitored was called Oko, Russian for eye. 9 satellites, watching American missile fields from space, designed to give the Soviet Union premise of warning. Just after midnight, the alarm sounded, with the highest confidence rating the system could give. 1 missile from a base in Montana. Then, moments later, 4 more. The first 15 seconds passed in total shock. Nobody in the room moved, ambiguous. Nobody spoke. Any launch warning was to be reported immediately, up the chain of command, toward Soviet leader Yuri Andropov, who held the authority to order a retaliatory strike. Petrov had a phone in one hand, connected to his superiors, and an intercom in the other, connected to his own staff. And in that moment, something did not sit right with him. Soviet doctrine held that an American first strike would be massive, overwhelming. Thousands of warheads launched at once, meant to cripple the Soviet Union before it could respond. 5 missiles made no sense as an opening move. It was too small, too clean. Ground-based radar, which scanned the horizon for missiles as they climbed, showed nothing. No confirmation. Just the satellite, insisting the sky was falling. The system was also new. It had only recently gone into service, and Petrov, more than anyone else in that room, knew it was capable of error. He had roughly 10 minutes before doctrine demanded an answer. He chose to wait. He told his commanders it was a false alarm before he could be completely certain, based on nothing but technical judgment and a gut feeling, that the pattern was wrong. No further missiles came. Ground radar stayed silent. The screen, eventually, went quiet too. He had been right. A satellite had caught sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds over North Dakota, and a flaw in the software had mistaken that glare for a missile launch. There had been no attack. There had only ever been light on clouds and one man's decision not to trust a machine over his own judgment. In any other story, this is where the hero is celebrated. That is not what happened to Stanislav Petrov. His superiors briefly praised his instincts. Then came the investigation, and with it, the paperwork. Petrov was reprimanded, officially, for failing to properly log every detail of the incident in real time, an almost absurd charge, given that he had a phone in one hand and an intercom in the other. Unofficially, the reason was simpler. His judgment had exposed flaws in an expensive, prestigious system that powerful men had built their careers on. Rewarding him would have meant admitting the Soviet Union's early warning system could fail. So there was no medal, no promotion, just quiet reassignment, and a military career that would never fully recover. By 1984, Petrov had left the armed forces for a research institute, the same one that had built the very system that failed him. The incident itself was classified, sealed away, as if it had never happened. Petrov, by his son's account, told almost no one, not even his own wife, what he had done that night. He struggled afterward. Exhaustion, the crushing weight of what almost happened, and years of institutional silence took a toll. He later described a period of real breakdown. For over a decade, the man who may have prevented global nuclear war lived in obscurity in a small apartment outside Moscow, and almost nobody knew his name. The silence broke in 1998, 15 years later, when a retired Soviet general published his memoirs and mentioned, almost in passing, what had happened that night at Serpukhov 15. The story reached the West, then it reached the world. In 2004, Petrov received the World Citizen Award at the United Nations. In 2011, a German Media Prize. In 2013, the Dresden Peace Prize, an honor built specifically around the idea that preventing catastrophe deserves the same recognition as winning a war. A documentary followed in 2014 called The Man Who Saved the World. Through all of it, Petrov remained almost defiantly unimpressed with himself. "I am not a hero," he told journalists, again and again. "I was just doing my job. I happened to be in the right place at the right time." He died in May of 2017, at 77 years old. His death went unreported in the West for nearly 4 months, discovered almost by accident by a filmmaker who had once interviewed him. Historians still debate exactly how close the world came to catastrophe that night. Some argue Soviet doctrine had further layers of verification that might have caught the error even without Petrov. Others believe he was the only thing standing between a false alarm and full-scale nuclear war. What is not up for debate is simpler than that. One tired, unheroic man in a windowless room chose 10 minutes of doubt over instant obedience. He gambled his career, and possibly his freedom, on the belief that the machine in front of him might be wrong. It was. And because of that, on September 26, 1983, the world woke up the next morning never knowing how close it had come to not waking up at all. Today, nuclear early warning systems are faster than ever, increasingly guided by algorithms and artificial intelligence, with even less time for a human to pause and think. Petrov had 10 minutes. In a modern system, that number keeps shrinking. His story is not really about 1983. It is a warning for every year that comes after it. Somewhere, right now, a system like Oko is still watching the sky. The question that mattered in 1983 still matters today. When the machine says launch, will there still be a person in the room willing to say wait?